I am so honored to have this opportunity to interview my next guest. If you haven't heard of Reggie Waterman and his book, Discover Your Other Self, you have to get it. He'll be talking more about it, but he is a podcaster, an author, workshop facilitator, and today he's going to help us just share, like how do we as parents discover children's superpower, their vision, right? And how do we find the remedy as parents to stop the suffering? Because as Reggie will share, what do you think parents are doing or not doing to create self-confident, adults? Because one day, I love how you said that little story. What little story do you think children of today may have if parenting continues? I'm not saying all parents do this, but you mentioned that we don't want them to fail. We want them to prevent their mistakes, right? Why is that not a good thing to do?
It's not a good thing at all, Karen, because you are limiting the growth potential of your son or daughter. So, what do I mean by that? Everybody on this earth, you, myself, your kids, my kids, we all have a purpose, believe it or not, right? Whether or not you believe, and I'm very spiritual, whether or not you believe in God or just the universe, whatever you want to call it, the source, we are all created with a purpose, a path. We all kind of fall into that trap of the comparison loop when we're looking at other people in terms of what they've accomplished and so forth. But from a parenting point of view, I find that like my generation of parents, I have an 18-year-old and 11-year-old at this point in time. And you ever heard of the term helicopter parents,
Oh yeah, I have a chapter in
right?
my Mama's Gotta Let Go book. Yeah, and it's how do we avoid that though? Because we have the best intentions, but then we end up, like you said, hovering. Why does hovering?
Yeah.
Why is it not healthy?
No, yeah, and it's not healthy. What I was gonna say is when you go from this, like what the helicopter parent is evolving into is like the
Yeah.
what I call the drone parent, because obviously it's the digital
Ooh.
age, right? You got a bunch of drones
Yes.
now and they're
Yes.
hovering, as you mentioned, but it's not healthy because you are stifling their ability to grow. And the growth comes from experiences, whether they be good or they're bad. If they, let's say, fail or make a mistake, that's a good thing.
Yes.
But the problem is that, as helicopter slash drone parents, we are there immediately, like just before the fall. So we're not
Uh-huh.
even letting them fall. So we're trying to do everything for them. But then we are creating a greater dependency, a codependency that manifests itself later on into adulthood that needs to actually break away sooner than later.
Wow. So it starts, when you have a little child and you want them to fall. I remember when my daughter 25, when she was little, we would clap every time she fell. And people thought it was crazy, right? We'd be like, "Yay!" And then she ended up clapping whenever she fell. But then as she got older, the educator in me, right? It's like, okay, I ended up guiding too much. How do we have awareness and stop ourselves before that codependency takes place?
I love the word that you used, awareness. And that's what each parent needs to have. They need to be aware, they need to pay attention, but they also need to separate their own ego and put it aside. Because remember, I said earlier, each one of us has a different path. A lot of the child rearing that's happening through parenting, it's more of a projection
Mhm.
of things that the parent has experienced or would have done differently if they were younger. So it's like they're kind of like their second chance, if you will. And they're
Definitely.
really trying to mold this child to kind of obviously have a better life than that they've had and be proactive to kind of mitigate any potential risks, right? But on the path of discovery for each child, there's that exploration stage. So I'm glad that like for you, when your child fell, like you were clapping, and that was to kind of hone in on the ideology and the concept that it's okay to fall,
Hmm.
right? You don't, because other babies, they look for your reaction, right?
Exactly.
And it's like, oh my god, if you panic, what happens? Naturally, they start crying, right? But if you're
Right.
clapping, it creates a good experience. But that awareness of doing that consistently then produces a different outcome versus the latter, versus the alternative where you are creating a sense of panic, a sense of anxiety. And what we fail to realize as parents, the things that we do during the tender ages, being the toddler age, they're watching, they're very observant, they're absorbing everything. So we have to be mindful, be aware, like you mentioned, that we have to obviously create a safe environment for our
Mm-hmm.
children, but we have to guide them as opposed to like just really taking their hand all the time and doing everything for them. Guide them in a way that they could discover and they could explore.
In a safe way. So, what do you tell a parent who says, you know what, my kid is failing. He's probably destined to fail. I can't do this anymore because he's a huge disappointment. And I always tell, when you read about the worst thing you can say, you're such a disappointment can just damage one's self-esteem, right? But how does a parent cope with that when you have no idea what to do and you can see your child, going kind of down?
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that that negative projection is being bestowed upon
Yeah.
some children, especially in that scenario if the child is not doing so well in school. Like, oh, you're gonna have a horrible future and this and that, but they don't realize that you are just fueling
Yes.
that negative stigma that's already in their head. You know, we the concept of not being enough continues to trigger every time they fall and they feel like they're a failure.
Hmm.
But you have to reverse engineer that and be more encouraging, because the more positive reinforcement they could receive, the better. But also balance that out with ways that, hey, if you go down this path, there's always consequences.
Hmm.
Yes, I want to encourage you to do well in school, be more focused, but at the same time, you don't want to like be on them constantly,
Right.
because then you're suffocating them and you're smothering them, right?
Right.
And with that smothering, and on top of you couple that with all the negativity that the child is receiving, what room do they really have to breathe?
None.
They're already considering themselves a failure because you're saying it.
Right.
And as I get older, as a from my youth to my adulthood, I'm gonna hear that voice from you. So we have to be very careful in terms of the projections that we put on our kids.
And so, what would you say are ways that we can find and discover our child superpowers and actually our superpower? Because sometimes, you know what you just said, we live through our children, which is why when they fail, instead of going, "Wow, what a great opportunity to grow and build resilience," we think, "What did I do to fail? Why did I create this opportunity to fail?" Well, they don't see it as an opportunity, but how do you do that? Do you have any specific suggestion?
Yeah, I think because every kid is different, I think you have to be aware. Like I use that word awareness again, like you mentioned, but hone in on what their talents are. If you feel that they are outspoken, they got this good energy about them, you know, based on the way that they communicate, that might be somebody in the future that could be a great speaker on stage, right? So it's like, how do you channel that? So you pay attention to the quirks, you pay attention to the way that they conduct themselves, right? The way that they deal with people, the way that they're able to form relationships, right? We have to look at those nuances and those traits, those character traits, so that we could kind of characterize and figure out, okay, what can they be? What's their trajectory like?
Hmm.
But you have to do it without taking yourself into consideration, because a lot of parents do that,
Yeah.
right? What I mean by that is a lot of parents put their kids in, let's just say, soccer, because maybe, hey, I wish I played soccer when I was a kid, or I didn't get a chance to, or maybe I did, and I didn't make it to Division 1 like college and this and that, or I didn't make it to the pros, but maybe my son can.
Right.
And then
Or
they
don't
kind
you
of
think they
force
want to
that
follow the
kid.
same path like they were in
Yeah,
that, D1, and then they're like, I want my son to follow the same path
the
I did
same
because
path.
yeah, yeah.
But you know what, Karen? In the simplest forms, here's how you could do it practically. Ask the question, son, daughter, what do you like? What do you like to do? What's your favorite thing to do? If the daughter may say, I love drawing, daddy. Okay, let's show me your best artwork. And
Wow.
if maybe, and have her be excited to show you maybe a recent or a past drawing or painting that she's done, so that she could showcase it to you. She could demonstrate her abilities, or maybe put her on the spot. Okay, awesome. Let's draw something, since you like to color or whatever, and then she could go at it, right? But we seldomly ask them the question about, what do you want to do? Remember, everyone has their own path. What little Sally may like is different from what little Billy's gonna like, but we don't ask the question. We are feeding our own egos because whatever society tells us, whatever the latest trend is for
Yes.
children these days, maybe we need to get them on that path, right? There's all this noise in the marketplace, but it comes down to the human level, which we have to bring it down to. What do you want to do? And through 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 that question, you could then uncover, okay, what their superpower is, right? So, like I said, Sally might be an artist, right?
Hmm.
Billy might be, he might like to break toys, but then put it back together.
Yeah.
But then what does that tell us? That tells us Billy might be an engineer, because especially if
Yeah.
he's putting it back together, because he wants to understand, okay, well, this broken toy, how does it work? How can I put this back together and figure it out, right? And that is an eye of an engineer.
Wow. Yeah, you just reminded me of my, my husband. I said, why would you do that at 5? And he took their TV apart, which I'm sure really annoyed his parents. And then he put it back together, but I'm sure his parents are like, you don't know what you're doing. But you're right. I don't think any parent, well, very few of us say, what do you want to do? Right? They just enroll them in all these classes.
Yeah.
I had a dog, I mean, a student who, after 10 years, the parents finally let her quit soccer and take ukulele. 10
Oh yeah.
years. She was miserable for 10 years, age 5 to 15. And I thought, why? But you have this idea.
But can we stay on that subject right there?
Yes, yes.
So think about that scenario and what that does. 10 years in soccer, a sport that she didn't like at all. Okay.
Yeah.
She hated that, but she had to satisfy her parents. We are not thinking about the future outcomes of those events. What do I mean by this, Karen? You have now honed your daughter in that scenario to be a people pleaser,
Yes.
or be in a potential relationship down the road where she's such a people, she wants to please her man. Maybe she doesn't even like this relationship at all. I'm talking about pre-marriage,
Right.
right? But she may feel like she's forced to continue in this relationship because of maybe the parents like him so much. And
Yeah.
if I break up with him, what are they going to think, and this and that? And she just sticks with it. So again, a lot of parents need to understand that what happens in childhood manifests itself into adulthood.
That's really powerful because I think a lot of parents, like you said, they think that they're doing the best, right? I am doing this for you. You need to get that scholarship. You need to go into the right school. I know, I think one of the parents said, they will be homeless. I had a 12-year-old say, yeah, if I don't, get my grades up, I'm going to be, I said, what is your worst fear? To be homeless. I said, wait, how does your grades equate to homelessness? And it's because that's what he was told. And I thought, what
Yeah.
are you doing to your child? Like you said, what story? Maybe that's the question. I mean, should parents ask themselves I don't think they realize the impact that their words and actions have regarding, like you said, when they become 30, or and that little story really impacts their simplest decisions, like you said, whether to break up. I know a lot of, like the 18-year-old or maybe early 20s. I've been with him for 3 years. It's too late to start over. So, it's been 5 years, and, they're so young and they think, but it's been, I mean, I'm kind of stuck in this, and they're in their 20s.
Yeah. And 3 years to them feels like a lifetime, right?
Yes, yeah. I mean, right now, like in high school, it's like 6 months, right? They've been together for a long time, like 8 months.
It's like they got to 6 months, they're like, What's the secret? How do
Yeah,
you stay together for six
exactly.
months?
That's a long time. And then others, though, they just think that it just naturally needs to progress to a lifetime. Because if you were with someone from 15 at 25, you're thinking, hey, it's been 10 years, you're not happy, but you know what? I can't end it. Why? Because it's been 10 years. I mean, what do you say? It could be a job too, though. I've been in it for,
Yeah.
12 years and I can't start over. What's your
No.
response to that? I can't start over. I'm, whatever age you are, right? I just,
It's all a limiting belief, right?
yeah,
There's so many factors. There's again society, friends, family that have a big influence. Like I was actually talking to a client of mine. I help her out with creating content for her LinkedIn, and we had an interesting conversation. It actually went on the path of parenting,
mm,
and she looked at the trajectory of her daughter in terms of where she was could have probably end up based on, some of her struggles when it came to education. And here's what I found fascinating. She goes, my daughter, like going into grade 9, was having issues like on failing just tests related to typing, like keyboarding. And she's like, how is my daughter like failing at keyboarding? So she told her daughter, if you continue to get bad grades, I'm going to put you in a boarding school.
oh my
And
gosh.
she said, the daughter said, Mom, you're not going to do that, calling her bluff. But what happened is that the daughter kept on failing. And the mom made a tough decision. She actually stuck to her guns. The thing is, the mom's in the education system. But here's where she made a hard decision. And keep in mind, this decision, there could be judgment. Like, really, just like how you said, like, oh my God, right? Natural reaction, natural reaction. Your reaction is very natural.
But it was the best thing.
But she said, you know what? I had to. I had to. She goes, I couldn't even drive. I enrolled her in the school. It was a private boarding school. I couldn't even drive her. It was so hard for me. I had to get
Oh,
family members to actually drive her because she said she kept on weeping. But fast forward, you know what the daughter said to her?
thank
Can you
you.
guess?
Thank you.
Yes. She said, if you didn't put me into that boarding school, God knows where I would have been. It was the best thing for me. And obviously that was reassuring to the mom. And I told her in that moment, I said, you know what? You're courageous for doing that. And she
Very.
goes, yeah, trust me, it was the hardest thing. When you think about the judgment that you could get, the ridicule that you could get from other parents. But she noticed also from that experience, the same friends that she had prior to going to the boarding school, fast forward their lives, teenage pregnancy, getting into trouble, this and that. So she could have been a product of that environment.
Yeah.
So she really saved her daughter and gave her and put her on a path to success. Now, majority of parents probably wouldn't do that. And the reason why I want to tell that story is because it's easy to fall victim to what other people are going to say. Oh my God, how could you send your daughter to a boarding school? You crazy? You're a horrible mom. But no, she had the awareness, paid attention to the trajectory of where her daughter was going, and gave her a better life. And sometimes you have to, especially in today's day and age with the mental health that these kids are
Yes,
suffering
just talking
today.
about that. Yeah, the mental health. And I mean, in Vegas during the quarantine phase, one of my friends said there were like 12 suicides and they were 8-year olds, between 8 and 10-year olds. And they could not handle maybe the social implications of the quarantine, the whole distance learning, and then we're focusing on grades, or we're focusing on, academics and how the teachers weren't teaching. And these are lives, these are, right, our little people who are saying I'm done, and they're not even in middle school.
Yes, that's sad. 8 to 10 years old. have their whole life ahead of them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And this is where it's critical as parents that we need to check in. And again, it's just asking the question. Like, think about it this way, even as adults, we do this. Karen, I could say, "How are you?" What's your response? How are you
And the
doing?
normal, yeah, depending on how well I know you, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing good. And then my
I'm
life could be
good,
falling apart, but then you don't want to
right?
say, well, actually, and then the person will be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have asked, right? If you have some people who just tell everything, but
And people
most
are
people,
awkward that way, right? Oh, I shouldn't have asked.
yeah.
No, why not? Like we're Karen, you're human. I'm human. Let's have that human interaction. If we are here to service each other in this world, I should be able to ask you a different question. Instead of how are you, I should be able to say, "Hey Karen, are you happy?"
Ooh, I like that one.
Right? Because then you may sit back for a while and say, check in with yourself, am I?
Yeah, exactly.
But the same thing goes for our kids. Why can't we ask our kids that question? Are you happy?
You know what it is? I think as a mom, and I was talking to other moms, I don't know why, if dads feel the same way, but if a child says, I'm not happy, mom, you immediately go to, how can I make you happy? Which is not a healthy question, but you immediately go into, like this fix it mode, right? I have
Mhm.
this one little girl, she's 6, but only child, and she like, what was my reward? Mom, can you give me a reward if you take down the Christmas tree because I'm going to be sad? And I looked at her and we talked about how we can't just always rely on rewards or always, because what is that teaching our children? You're going to have to get a reward every time you're sad instead of knowing that. I mean, how do you teach that it's okay to be sad? It's okay to embrace all emotions because like you said, I mean, if that mother based her decision on whether it was too hard, she wouldn't have been courageous, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So how do we find that courage? I mean, that to me is a superpower.
Oh yeah, of course it is. Oh man, we've dropped that awareness like word like so many times. That is a superpower. It is because a lot of people lack it. We talk about lacking self-awareness or just the word self-awareness in its own. You know, uncovering everybody's superpower is essential. And I always reference like what Steve Harvey usually says, and he talks about everyone having like their own unique fingerprint. And it's so
Mm.
true because Karen, you have a superpower. I have my superpower. Um, and you know what? I've even developed a framework for kids, adults to do. And this framework is called the time matrix. It's a 4-quadrant matrix, right? So 4 quadrants, line from the top to bottom, left to right. And on the top left-hand corner, it's what do I not want in my life or career? And the reason
That
why I
is a
start with
good
that,
question, right? That is
yeah,
so powerful because we usually, I want this, I want this, I want this, and then you get the money, you get the position, and then you realize I'm not happy.
yes. And the reason why I asked that question at first, because you want to get that out the way. I think
Yes.
that's the easiest thing. What I don't want, I think that's the easiest thing for anybody to identify. I could be wrong, but I'm
No, you're
saying it
right. You know
is.
why? Because or you think it's going to make you happy, but
Yeah.
you don't really think about it's like, okay, you got the six-figure job, you got the position. Why am I miserable? Oh, because I don't like this part of my job, which takes 8 hours of my day. What is it
Yes.
about that? Then the next time, right? Are you aware then the next time you find a job and it pays double, but you think, wait a minute, oh, that quadrant is telling me red flags. You're gonna make
Exactly.
double the amount, but you're gonna be doubly miserable.
Exactly. So that's the whole point of it. So you nailed it. And then
Wow.
once you figure that out, what you don't want, then you go to what I want in my life, right? Bottom left hand corner, what are my superpowers? Because it's the superpowers that are going to help you get what you want, right?
Yeah.
And then the bottom right hand corner is this time next year. So, for example, today is February 9th,
Yeah.
2022. This time next year, February 9th, 2023, I'm going to be doing A, B, C, D. And that starts the visualization and
Yeah.
manifestation process. So this exercise could be done for at any age. And I'll encourage your audience to even try it. And they could go even on my website, reggiewaterman.com, and I have a template as well as a video that explains how it all works.
Wow, what a powerful, powerful way to end. Thank you so much. I know you're super, super busy. Last question. If you could choose like a one quote, it could be your own to help people while they're struggling, because that's what you're, right? I love that empowered life hack. Love those
Yes.
words. What, when we mention a remedy for, I know it's like a quick fix remedy to handle the suffering that we create, why recreate it, and we're thinking, why do I have to suffer? But it's the stories, right? What can we tell ourselves in the midst of that? I am done. Things are hopeless. Forget it. What is the,
Well, I know you asked for a quote as well, but the quote actually ties into what people could actually do.
okay.
So I'll say, and I just read it in a book about operational learning. The author of this quote is unknown because the author of the book, he pulled out this quote and he put it in his book, which I found was very fascinating. But it goes like this: He who has not made a mistake has not made anything at all.
Wow.
He who has not made a mistake has not made anything at all. To me, that's powerful. And the reason why is because we are all scared of failure. We're all scared to try new things because what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if it bombs? But you don't think about the other end of that. What if you succeed? And even if it does fail, there's failure. Sorry, there's learning and teachings within those failed moments and events. So it's okay to make mistakes. And if that's the one big nugget that your audience could take away, it's try new things. Put yourself out there. You only live once, and your spirit will always tell you whether or not you're happy or you're satisfied. And happiness comes from within. So you have to have those conversations. As crazy as I just made it sound, have those conversations with yourself. Have those conversations with myself. It's weird, but you got to do it.
But it makes sense. And don't you think there's a gift? There's a gift in failure, but we have to change that mindset. I mean, I think students will change their entire belief system about school if they knew not to fear failure.
Hmm.
But don't we put that on, right? We put that on our student. It's like, wait, you got a 80. That's close to a C, which might be close to a D, which will be, I don't know, you might end up homeless. I mean, it's such a crazy, crazy. When someone told me that, my mom said that I'm going to end up homeless. I'm like, wait a minute, but you're averaging, wait, what?
It's like, why go to that extreme? Why put that in their head? Why, like,
Yes, but that was their fear. I said, we talk about what's your worst fear, being homeless. Okay, and why? Because if I don't pass this class, I might repeat a grade, I might fail, then I might not get a job, and then I'll be homeless. That was their trajectory. So everyone
it's
needs to read this
unfortunate.
book. Tell me the title again and all your social media, where
So
people
my
can find
book,
you. Yes,
Discover Your Other Self.
love
It's
it.
now available on Amazon and social media. In terms of Instagram, you can find me at reggie.waterman. And I'm also on LinkedIn. Just type in my name. And actually, as of today, I'm super excited about this. LinkedIn created a post because it's Black History Month. They gave me a shout out, me and a handful of other Black creators, and they said, "Here's our favorite Black creators on LinkedIn." And I was like, that's amazing. So I gotta
Wow,
celebrate it. I have to celebrate that. Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you,
What a
thank you.
perfect day to interview you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to following you and I want to promote this book. I think everyone needs to just discover, we always say discover yourself, but it's discover your other self,
Other
that
self.
hidden self that has superpowers.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you so much, and I really, really appreciate. You have no idea. You just made my year.
No worries. Thank you for having me, Karen.
Okay, take care.
You too.
Bye.